Hello everyone and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Today we are discussing daily quiz for 16th of March 2024. So without wasting any time, let's look at question number 1. Question number 1 is with reference to electric vehicles, consider the following statements. Now why electric vehicles? Because in yesterday's PIB we see this particular article, that is government approves e-vehicles policy to promote India as a manufacturing destination for EVs. Now there is a policy, and as a part of this policy there are certain parts, certain things that have been given by the government, and this is where they want to promote the manufacturing of electric vehicles in India. And that's why as a part of this policy there are all these criteria that have been set, so that any company that wants to invest in India and wants to start manufacturing in India, they have to look into all these aspects of this policy. So this is an aspect where the government of India wants that the people of India should get all the latest technology with regards to EVs, plus it should also be able to promote Make in India project in this aspect of electric vehicles. So that is why this policy. Now let's look at this question with regards to electric vehicles. First statement, the total cost of ownership for electric vehicles can be higher than that of conventional internal combustion engine vehicles over their lifespan. Now this is not correct. We are saying that the total cost will be higher. Now this is counterproductive. What we want is to reduce the cost, because there will be a lot of costs that petrol or diesel based vehicles entail, and that's why in this particular scenario you will be able to reduce the cost over the lifespan. The initial cost can be high, remember this, the initial cost can be high, but overall cost will be lower. So that's why this is wrong. The government of India's FAME India scheme is aimed at promoting the adoption of electric vehicles by providing upfront incentives on the purchase of EVs. Now this is correct. This is something that also became a part of India's policy back in 2017-18, and ever since we have been looking into EVs with this policy or scheme. Third statement, lithium-ion batteries used in most electric vehicles are completely biodegradable and pose no environmental hazards after their life cycle. Now this is not correct. Wherever you have batteries, just remember this, wherever you are using batteries are going to cause some kind of an issue when it comes to their disposal. And the same happens with lithium ion batteries as well, that their disposal will not be that easy. So that's why this is a wrong statement. Now which of the above statements are incorrect? You have been asked what is incorrect. So 1 and 3. These are the two statements which are incorrect. Let's look at question number 2. Consider the following statements about antimicrobial resistance. Now why a question on antimicrobial resistance? Because in PIB we had this particular article. Deliberations held on creating awareness among farmers regarding the judicious use of antibiotics in livestock, aquaculture and poultry. Now this is one of the problems with regard to when it comes to antibiotic resistance or antimicrobial resistance in general, because it is not only because of some of the malpractices that humans have, or in our health regard we have certain malpractices, for example overuse of drugs or incorrect dosage etc., or incorrect drugs being used for certain medicine or certain diseases. So all these are the issues because of which it leads to heightened number of cases of antimicrobial resistance. But it's not only our neglect of health and healthcare practices, but also from the perspective of agriculture, where a lot of livestock and poultry will be given a lot more of antibiotics than they need. So that also starts creating a lot of issues with regard to the antimicrobial resistance. So that is why we are looking at this particular article. So first point, AMR is a problem in the healthcare sector, animal health and agriculture. Now this is correct, that this is not only a healthcare related problem, but it's also an issue with regard to the animal health and also agriculture, and that also becomes a pathway by which you can actually create issues for human health as well, because the same antimicrobial resistance that has developed through the bacteria which are in the, let's say, gut of the animals, the same can through, let's say, their feces, or maybe because of other factors, they can also mix with the soil and water nearby and then can also enter the human environment. So that's why it all has to be taken care of. AMR has been observed in some neglected tropical diseases. Now this is also correct, that in cases of neglected tropical diseases like, let's say, leprosy, In cases of leprosy also, we have seen certain cases where antimicrobial resistance has started showing up. So that's why it is very dangerous that all these diseases also is where antimicrobial resistance is spreading. So that's why both these statements given here are correct. So correct answer will be C. Moving on, the next question is, consider the following statements about bioethanol. Now, why bioethanol? In case of bioethanol, what we see is that there was this article that we have, ethanol 100 fuel launched by Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri. Now, in this regard, when we talk about ethanol 100, understand what ethanol 100 is, and there are two types of nomenclature that will come across. One could be when we say E100, and one can be when we say ethanol 100. When we say ethanol 100. Now, E100 and ethanol 100 have two different meanings. E100 you might come across, or there are other nomenclatures like E20, E10, all these are also there in the newspapers very often. So in case of E10, E20, E100, what we mean is this is the percentage of ethanol. This is basically the percentage of ethanol that is being mixed with petrol. So E10 would mean that there is 10% bioethanol and 90% petrol. And similarly, E20 would mean that you have 20% ethanol and 80% petrol, and so on. But when it comes to this nomenclature that is being used by the government of India, E100, what E100 means is that this is where you have a very high octane rating ethanol, where the efficiency of this ethanol is going to be very high, and that's why it is E100, because its octane rating will be between 100 to 105. And that is why the name has been given as ethanol 100. So that's why just remember that ethanol 100 means that here we are talking about the octane rating. This is basically about octane rating being in the range of 100 to 105. And that's why there is a difference between these two nomenclature. Now let's look at the options that we have right in front of us. Consider the following statements about bioethanol. First, bioethanol can be produced from agricultural feedstocks such as groundnut, sunflower oil and cassava. Now this is not entirely correct, because groundnut or sunflower oil, these are primarily used for biodiesel production. Alright, these are primarily used for biodiesel production, and cassava can be used for bioethanol. This can be used for bioethanol, so that's why this is wrong, because the first two are actually useful for as biodiesel. Second, the production of bioethanol is considered carbon neutral. Now this is also not correct. The meaning of carbon neutral is that the amount of carbon dioxide that is being emitted through the exhaust of this fuel, or in this entire, let's say, production cycle, is equal to the amount that the plant would have undertaken or the plant would have absorbed in its lifetime. So that's not the case in this scenario, because we see that it can actually produce a little more carbon dioxide. There is a certain amount of carbon dioxide that is being produced, so it cannot be called as completely carbon neutral. Yes, it does reduce pollution. The pollution factor can be reduced by as high as 85%, but not 100%. Carbon dioxide emission cannot be closed 100%, so it cannot be called as 100% carbon neutral. E100 fuel is the bioethanol with 100% ethanol and no petrol. This is correct. E100 is this, and ethanol 100, if let's say the question had said ethanol 100 is a fuel, then in that case it would have been a wrong statement. So only one statement is correct, so correct answer will be A. Moving on, question number 4. Consider the following statements about the atmospheric research test bed near Bhopal. Now this is a new facility that has been developed, and this was an article that we have in the Indian Express. So I've taken this from the Indian Express. Why has India developed an atmospheric test bed near Bhopal? Now this question basically is with regard to this. And why this test bed? Because we want to understand the monsoon better. We want to understand the pattern of rainfall better. And that is the basic reason why this has been set up. Alright. So if you look at the question, statement number 1. The ART aims to enhance the accuracy of rainfall prediction is in India. This is correct. As I told you that we want to understand the monsoon patterns better and the rainfall prediction can become much better in this. So this is correct. It is a project funded by the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Pune. Now this is wrong. All right. This is wrong. And if you look at this statement or this article right here, this is something that has been funded by Ministry of Earth Sciences, and the involvement, the funding of the funding is not being done by Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology. Is IITM involved? The answer is yes. In operations they will be involved, but is it being funded by them? The answer is no. Funding is being done by the Ministry of Earth Sciences itself. So this is a wrong statement. Third, the selection of Silkheda for ART was based on its location, which aligns with the path of major rain bearing system. Now this is correct, that it aligns with the major rain bearing system, and it is a part of something which is called as monsoon core zone. So monsoon core zone basically are the areas which receive the highest amount of rainfall in this entire season. So that's why it is a part of it, and that's why this particular area was chosen. So 1 and 3 are correct. So the correct answer here will be B, that only 2 statements are correct. Then question number 5. This is a previous year question that we have taken from the 2020 paper. The experiment will employ a trio of spacecraft flying in a formation in the shape of an equatorial triangle that has sides 1 million kilometers long with lasers shining between the craft. The experiment in the question refers to. Now this where we are saying that there will be a trio of spacecraft in an equatorial triangle, equilateral triangle formation, and then at the center actually there will be a test object that will keep, which will be made of gold, and this actually is something which is evolved LISA, and this is going to help us in finding gravitational waves, in detection of gravitational waves. So this is something that has been in the news for quite some time now, and there are 2 questions actually that have been asked by UPSC on this one topic itself. Correct answer is D. Let's look at the fact of the day for today, and this is basically based on an article, a very interesting article that we have in the Hindustan Times of today, not today, 2 days back. Now in this Hindustan Times article, they basically have talked about how all these Pacific nations or the Pacific island nations, they have their own systems where they are able to find the rainfall patterns and the climatic changes, etc., and they are able to prepare accordingly, and there are a lot of examples that have been given. So it's a very interesting read and something that can become a fodder also for your examination sometimes, especially in your mains examination, if something related to climate change and cultural aspects of it is to be written. So now that's why we are talking about these Pacific nations, where we have 3 Pacific bunches. One is Micronesia, one is Polynesia, and one is Melanesia. So what is Micronesia, Polynesia, and Melanesia? This is the fact of the day for today. Now here altogether, when we are talking about them, they all become a part of a larger group of all these islands which are there in this part called as Oceania. And as a part of Oceania, we have all these articles plus some of the other islands, plus some of the other islands like Australia, New Zealand, etc. All these are called as a part of Oceania. And in that we have all the Pacific islands. So where we have Micronesia, a group of islands. So micro means small. So group of islands which are small island nations. And we have Guam and Kiribati, etc., Marshall Islands, etc., are all a part of Micronesia. And Micronesian cultures are diverse, and languages and traditions that they vary very significantly from one island to another. And there are many languages that we have seen in this particular area. And this is where we see that they have their navigational history, where we see that there are ancient Micronesians which were said to be very skilled sailors and navigators. So Micronesia, small islands, that's why Micronesia. And then after that we have Polynesia. So poly means many. So you have many islands that you have here, and they span a vast triangle in the eastern Pacific. And this is where we see that they have some Samoa and Tonga, etc., they are a part of it. Even French Polynesia is a part of these islands. And here we see that Polynesian cultures, they share linguistic roots and have very similarities in their social and political structures. Then apart from that, we have Melanesia. Now Melanesia has been given the name Black Islands, and it mainly is also because of the fact that the people who have been inhabiting these areas, they have darker skin tones, and that's why Melanesia is the name that has been given to this part. And this is where we have Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Solomon Islands, etc. They all become a part of Melanesia. So all these basically, they together they become a part of the Pacific Islands that we have in these areas. So as you can see that you have Micronesia, you have Melanesia and Polynesia. All these become a part of this particular part of the Pacific Ocean. So this brings us to the end of today's discussion. I hope this discussion is helpful for your examination. Thank you very much for being here.